our buddy BLG for jumping in and doing a Eagle spot with us. Coming up next hour, about 25 minutes from now, less than that. The voice of the Eagles, en Espanol, Ricky Ricardo, is going to jump in with us, also host on WIP. And oh, by the way, yes, I mentioned WIP before we went to break. I was in my car yesterday and I caught the beginning, first segment, 15, 20 minutes in, of the Marks and Reese show. Johnny Marks and former Eagle Ike Reese. And they were talking about belief in the Eagles going back to the Super Bowl. And Ike, who of course bleeds Eagle green, was the tentative one, which surprised me. That it's tough to go back after you lose.
Well, Ike's a player. He knows, man. It's tough.
Okay. I know it was a while ago, but I know the Buffalo Bills went back 3 consecutive times after losing their first one and lost their second one and lost their third one and lost their fourth one. So it's not impossible. It doesn't happen often. I get that. So you are playing percentages here, but it can be done. And here's the reason why I'm leaning toward the Eagles going back to the Super Bowl today. Readily admit they don't get this Jalen Hurts thing done, and it's hanging over the organization like a black cloud. Oh, I'll get off the bandwagon like you read about. If all of the if the guys who I think are key, like Bradbury and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and Hargrave, and the Eagles can't get any of them to come back, oh, I'll change my tune as well. But right now, we don't know about any of the Eagle free agent players, and we don't know about other teams' free agent players. There's just missing pieces to the puzzle, so you have to project and predict a little bit. Philadelphia Eagles were and still are the best team in the NFC. Why can't they get back to the Super Bowl? Why shouldn't Eagle fans believe then go back to the Super Bowl again next year?
Why shouldn't they believe? Well, coaching changes, player changes. Howie's already admitted, you're right, we don't know yet, but he's already admitted he's getting compensatory picks in 2024. So, I mean, that's the guy in charge. He knows he's going to lose some. So from that standpoint, well, I talked about all the career seasons, regression to the mean. That's why you should be concerned about them not going back. But as far as, being the favorite right now, which is kind of meaningless, but they should be the favorite right now. And they are. I've seen Super Bowl odds already. Well, actually, I saw 2 different versions. One had San Francisco slightly ahead of the Eagles, and one had the Eagles ahead, slightly ahead of San Francisco. So those would be the 2 teams. Right now, they should be the favorite. They are the favorite, probably in most betting markets. But yeah, I mean, there's tons of dominoes to fall. Other teams can think about the Eagles offseason.
That's what Ike said. Go back to February 20th of last year. Was anybody picking the Eagles to be in the Super Bowl?
No. And if another team
was, I know one who was.
You were, but you were higher, and you were looking for some value. I think you'll admit that
25-1 did affect.
Yeah.
My thought
you weren't saying they were the best team, I don't believe. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I'd love to be able to say I said that. I didn't say that.
Yeah.
Here with
So
John
you were
McClellan
looking for
on
some
Birds
value.
365.
Yeah, you were looking for some value, which is understandable. Like I said with Detroit, you're looking for some value. Yeah, they had a great offseason. They made so many good decisions. Maybe somebody else has that type of offseason. And we're talking about somebody else. Maybe it's Detroit. Maybe it's, who knows? Maybe Sean McVay's back. Maybe they do a brilliant job. Could be any. We see worst to first in the NFL every season.
That's a good point.
A lot of things to happen. But right now, the Eagles should be the favorite and are the favorite in most betting markets to get back.
And I think they absolutely should be, and maybe it's me looking at it through green-colored glasses, but and you're right, things can change drastically. That's what the offseason is all about. I just don't see it of any other team in the I think the Packers will be worse because Aaron Rodgers, I think, will be in the AFC.
What if Jordan Love turns into a star? Yeah. Jalen Hurts. I mean, There's a lot of, by the way, Packers fans do not deserve that, but if they get another one, but nonetheless, what if it happens? She's got some talent, shows some flashes. Um, yeah, there's so many things, Jody. I mean, Dallas, we laugh about it, but still pretty significant talent.
Yeah,
The
but let me
Giants.
give you a Dallas point of view. I'm a Pollard guy. Now, I'm not as big a Pollard fan as that knucklehead on Fox Sports, Skip Bayless, who actually said, I'll take Pollard over Christian McCaffrey, which I think is a little over the top. But Tony Pollard was a damn good player for them this year and an important player for them. And he's a free agent at the end of the year. And they're not cap wide open either. You think they'll be better if they just go back to Ezekiel Edwards as the main guy, pound it down other teams'
No,
throat with Zeke?
I think Zeke is, but we've seen it with Isaiah Pacheco. I mean, you can find a back in the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round in the case of Pacheco. But Minnesota, I mean, Brian Flores is the defensive coordinator now. Now, I don't know what they're going to do, but I guarantee you his defense is going to be better than stinking Ed Donatel's defense. Like, if they were a middle of the road defense this year, they're probably a contender. If they were 31st or whatever the hell they ended up. There's a lot of somebody's going to jump up. Somebody's going to jump up that surprises you.
You're right about Minnesota because their defense was so hideous that it kept them from being in. You were one of the guys who rightfully said, "Yeah, I don't care what the Vikings record is. Yeah, I know they keep winning regular season games. They're doing it this unbelievable way. They find a way to win every single close game, and when they lose, they get the bejesus beaten out of them." And you're right. The Giants went in and beat them in their house in the playoffs. That was another team you didn't have any faith in. At least the Giants won one playoff game, which was more than Minnesota did. But you had the right read on the Vikings. I just can't. I can't get past the Eagles if they do a decent job. And yeah, we're putting some faith in Howie Roseman as well. We should.
Well, you
After
should.
the phenomenal offseason he had last season. Is he all of a sudden going to forget how to be a general manager, how to negotiate contracts, how to manipulate the cap? I don't think so. I still think they're the team to beat here.
Well, more with the Eagles is the Eagles are going to make good decisions. I mean, I have a lot of respect for the Eagles organization. I hope they hear that after yesterday, but I think they make really good decisions. I think there's a reason, people come looking to them for help, whether it's front office people, whether it's coaches. That's because they make good decisions by and large. Doesn't mean you get everything right, but if you make good decisions, you're going to get more things right than wrong. My biggest hesitation to the Eagles, if I'm going to be Ike Reese, is they had so many guys who had career seasons. I mean, that just doesn't roll over. We've been around sports for a long time, Jody. I mean, I always go back to baseball or basketball. Well, how many home runs did Aaron Judge hit last year? What was it? 62, 63, whatever it was.
The all-time American League record.
He ain't hitting 64 this year. I mean, he might, but I'm betting against it. And there are so many Eagles players who had career seasons. Are they going to be able to do it again or even improve? Forget about improve. Just do it again. Is Hassan Reddick going to have 19 sacks in 19 games? I probably not. I mean,
but if he has 16, is that a blatant drop off where you go, oh well, Hassan Reddick isn't what he once was? If he gets three less,
not a blatant drop off. No,
world?
it's not. It's not a blatant drop off. But I'm saying it's not just Hassan Reddick. Like Miles Sanders goes from whatever it was, 800
Yeah,
yards.
but you just told me we can find Miles Sanders in the 6th round this year. The Eagles are going to be able to,
well, and they
just like the
are,
Cowboys, be able to snap their fingers and get that kind of back.
but it
If you
might
replace
be,
Tony Pollard with a 6th rounder, you should be able to replace Miles Sanders with a 6th rounder.
but you're not going to be able to replace 1,260 yards and 11 touchdowns. Again, career season. Over the long term, can you replace him? Yeah, they are going to replace him. I don't think he's going to be back. Are you going to have a second team all pro corner opposite Darius Slay?
No, that scares me.
Is Chauncey Gardner going to lead the league in interceptions again? I mean, that is just natural regression to the mean stuff that I'm talking about. And it's, just like I said it during the season when Nick and everybody was riding high when the Eagles were plus 15. I said that's going to roll back. That's going to roll back.
And it did.
Plus 8 still pretty good, but it rolled back pretty significantly just because that's what happens. That's my concern.
All right, and I'm guessing the return to the means is not all that heavy, which could still leave the Eagles on top of the NFC when the season's over and done with. All right, Johnny Mac, here's a question for you that I had to answer in the negative. Do you know what SEN breakfast is? Sen breakfast?
No, I do not.
You don't know what it is. Neither do I. Apparently, it's a sports talk show that I hadn't heard of, and my apologies to the members of the SEN breakfast staff. But it's a podcast that Aaron Sipos showed up on yesterday. And
is it Australian?
I don't SEN breakfast. That's what I saw. That's why, and I tried to type it in, and all you get is their Twitter handle when you Google them, and it shows that they have sports conversations. All I know is Aaron Sipos was on there yesterday. SEN breakfast show.
Yeah, it's okay. Australian. I'm just
Australian
from Melbourne. So
yeah. Good for SEN breakfast. Well, they got Aaron Sipos on. I didn't know he had gone back down under. I guess he should after the punt that he kicked in the Super Bowl. He talked about it on this show yesterday, and he actually said he was trying to kick it very high because he was very willing to give them a fair catch and make them go 70 yards, the length of the field, to be able to score. Even if that were the case, would you admit to that? After the Shankopotamus that he hit, the line drive that he hit, I was just trying to kick it as high as humanly possible to make him fair catch it. I'd keep that one under wraps if I was Aaron Sipos.
Well, he probably thinks he's in, safe places in Australia. Maybe it won't get back to the States, but no, everything gets back. Yeah. I think the Eagles made a bad decision there. Not that Brett Kern is great, but I mean, he hadn't punted since December 11th. Not that, Brett Kern's better than Aaron. I just thought hadn't punted. And then you're showing up in the Super Bowl and go do it. I don't know. I thought that was a bad decision, and it worked out in a negative way for the Eagles. That's one where I think talk about this team making good decisions typically. I think that was a bad decision, and it worked out poorly. Sometimes good decisions work out poorly, but I think that was a bad decision.
All right, so let's continue on with the Eagles' decisions and punters. If they move on from Aaron Sipos this offseason, which is a distinct possibility, they're going to need someone else to be a punter. And I haven't started doing my homework on is there a tremendous punter in this year's draft class. There was last year. There was a couple guys, actually.
Oh, don't bring up that name.
Oh, yeah, I'm going. That's exactly where I'm going, Jody Mac. Matt Ariza, supposedly the punt god, signed a contract with a Mexican football team. Do they play football in Mexico?
Evidently. His agent corrected that. Not the case.
I get that. Yeah. That he didn't sign out. He's not going to be playing with the Mexican. He's drafted by Buffalo last year. He had the Chargers. The story broke that he and Buffalo either friends or teammates were involved with a potential sexual assault on an underage girl. It was a big enough story that the Buffalo Bills just pulled the plug on him and released him during the preseason. There were no criminal charges filed against him, only a civil suit. John McMullen, you used to report with me all the time here on Birds 365 about the Eagles' interest in Deshaun Watson. And Arise's situation is basically the same as Deshaun's. No criminal charges, civil suits. There's only one here. There were plenty with Deshaun Watson, and the Eagles, they went after Deshaun Watson. They inquired about Deshaun Watson. They had conversations about Deshaun Watson. They were shut down basically because Deshaun Watson said, "Thank you, no, I don't want to go to Philadelphia." So the Eagles were ready to go down that road before with a player who had very similar issues off the field. They're not doing the same at the punter position. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah. Here. Position. Deshaun Watson, you can't see, but the value of the position. I mean, if Deshaun Watson played any other position, the Eagles wouldn't have even considered for 10 seconds about making a phone call. The value of that position speaks for itself. Now, it looks kind of silly now after you see what Jalen Hurts, but remember, we're going back to the offseason last year when Jalen Hurts wasn't proven to be an MVP candidate or do all the things that he did. They thought that Deshaun Watson, and they probably still think that, he's going to get back to being a true superstar at the position. Yeah, it's a punter. I mean, you're not going through that for a punter. There's a big difference between a quarterback and a punter.
And I get that. And that's reality. But if you're moving beyond that, if you're interested in a player, regardless of his position, and we're willing to put up with some, why wouldn't you do that for Sam? Yeah, all right, I get it. No, it's a quarterback and a punter. They can't be. I'm trying to put them on an equal platform.
Yeah.
And there's just no reality in the world in football where you can do something like that. Because I like the kid as a punter, and I don't know. He might be the biggest.
How could you not like him as a punter? I mean, how could you not like him as a punter? Maybe he gets another opportunity because the stuff is cleared up from at least a criminal standpoint, and maybe he gets another opportunity. But the fact that he plays punter and people don't value punter, and the Eagles probably should have valued it a little bit more than they did this season. It's going to be tougher for him than somebody else who's had similar circumstances at more valuable positions.
I understand the different positions have different values, and quarterback is the most. There's quarterback. Let me do a John McMullen hand drop here. Here's quarterback, and here's everybody else. There's a big difference between those positions. Well, I should go quarterback, wide receiver, edge pass rusher. Yeah, all the way here's punter down by my ankles. So it's not a fair comparison. Are we going to get some in the next? Johnny Mac, you and I are on for the next 3 days. Oh, by the way, I haven't mentioned this today. I did mention it yesterday. The powers that be at the JAKIB Media YouTube channel have decided to give your guys a break. Johnny Mac and I are going to be off next week. We've been doing it straight through since April of last year, April of almost 2 years ago now, sneaking up on 2 years, every week here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. And they said, yeah, you guys could use a break. So Johnny Mac and I are going to be off next week. With our luck, that's exactly when the Jalen Hurts major negotiation is going to hit the you-know-what, because free agency doesn't kick in for a while. Be the combine. There'll be certain things going on, but it has the potential to be a slow week as well. We're going to get ahead of the curve here. How are we going to do us a solid and get something done by Friday? Because that way we can talk about it before we take a week off.
I do think they're going to have the coordinators in place by the combine. I do think that. We'll see with Jalen. But yeah, there's some stuff that could happen, but probably not in the next 2 days. And if it does, it'll happen at 10:05 a.m.
They did that to us a couple times
Yeah.
this year. The information breaks just after we wrap up Birds 365. All right, we're going to wrap up this segment here, and we're holding out for the voice of the Philadelphia Eagles en Espanol, Ricky Ricardo. Ricky's a good buddy to both John and myself. John hops on his WIP show all the time. I've known Ricardo forever. I did not hear any of his call en Espanol. Every once in a while, somebody will send me a clip of something. Usually it's when it's good news, when there's a really big play and Ricky goes nuts and makes a great call out of it. There were probably a couple plays that certainly were the case, the long touchdown pass that Jalen threw, but there were also some letdown calls in that Super Bowl. I'd love to know how he described Jalen's fumble. We'll ask him that when we get on here, because nobody would have seen that coming ahead of time, end up being as big a play as it is. He does a great job when he does the games in Spanish for the Philadelphia Eagles. And, of course, he's a host on WIP because he can talk birds. He talks it all the time. He'll do that with us next. Mac, John McMullen, Jody McDonald, joined by Ricky Ricardo next here on Birds 365.